Hello everybody, this is Jasmina, and in this video I am going to talk about the uncivilized punishment. It exhibits itself in several ways. Basically, people that have the uncivilized punishment are not generally kind. They don't really quite understand kindness in one respect. They don't understand why people would do things just to be helpful. So that has a lot to do with being kind. Now, they often also find social norms superfluous, that they just like the small talk, they don't see the point. And honestly, I don't see the point either, especially when you're very busy. Now, the other problem is they're very suspicious of people who try to help them. They typically will refuse their help, and on the rare occasion when they help others, they feel like that person has too little gratitude for what they have done because they do it so rarely. So even if it's a small thing that most people would be fine with a thank you, these people won't because they don't normally do this. And it just doesn't come to them naturally. And in general, they're suspicious of other people's motives and actions. So obviously here, there's a lot of problem with trust of others, and also they have a different point of view. They don't see why anybody would help anybody without expecting something in return. So that's again a problem of trust. So this is pretty hard to fix because this is a like inborn problem with trust. Now, of course, this is going to lead to problems with relationships, and it can be both professional and personal. It actually depends on where the uncivilized punishment is in your chart, whether it's professional or personal. Now, oftentimes these people are better off working alone or as a freelancer because they always are questioning, why is somebody doing something? You know, why would they want to do this? And so they're just easier if they can work alone. And if they're skilled enough, there's no problem with them working alone. If they learn enough so that they can do a job that other people can't do, of course they can work alone. So education in general is pretty important, or at least having certain skills is pretty important. Now, one's upbringing can have a huge impact on how nasty this can become. So if you are brought up, if you have this and are brought up in a abusive environment, it's going to be really, really bad. But if you're brought up in a environment where your parent is constantly emphasizing being more empathetic, maybe it's not so bad. So if you have a child with this uncivilized punishment, you have to be really careful about the upbringing and basically always help them think about other people and not just think about themselves and how they can get by in life. And this takes a lot of work, and but you can actually make this a positive for your kid if you already know this. Now, the uncivilized punishment is pretty simple. It just consists of a rat and a rabbit in adjacent pillars. Now, if you only have one of these, of course, this punishment can be triggered by annual or the luck pillar. If you only have one branch, or if you have two branches that are not adjacent to each other. And if there's one pillar between these two animals, usually it is pretty weak. And if it's two pillars, it's like the clash. It doesn't really exist. Now, this is a weird combination because the rat is water, it produces the rabbit, which is wood. You would think that this would be a very good combination. Uh, but and there are also other cases where there are two adjacent pillars with a growth relationship like this. So why is this one so unusual? Well, I have another video coming out that explains how all of these punishments, harms, destructions, and everything come out of the combinations. You have already seen that the six harms are derived from the six harmony combo and the clashes. So there's a general statement out of combinations, which is usually thought of as positive, comes the harm, which is usually thought of as negative. Now, all of the punishments and the destructions are derived from the combination of the three harmony and the directional combos. When you put those together, everything falls out in kind of a very natural way. And so this is why this is the one that has the problem. Now, for people with uncivilized punishment, of course, the root of the problem is they believe most people have bad intentions towards others, including themselves. So they don't see people as benevolent in general. But this is actually a projection. A person with an uncivilized punishment uh, typically feels no reward for helping others. So they don't see why anybody would want to help somebody expecting nothing in return. It just goes against their natural grain. And so that is that is actually quite sad, but it can be there. And there are people like this. I've actually known quite a few. Now, when that happens, when somebody tries to help them, they become very suspicious about what that motive of that person, the person who wants to help them, why would they do this? They don't understand. And again, that's to me is quite sad. Now, but with a good upbringing, they have shown that a person with this punishment can become actually quite upright, have really solid morals when it comes to the law. They really, they really have this distinction of what they can do. They want to stay lawful, so they don't end up in jail, and but but they also don't have any flexibility there. It's whatever's written in the law, that's what they follow. But this is not such a bad thing. That means they can't be bribed or influenced by flattery. So they make excellent judges, good politicians. Not, I mean, most politicians are very just deal makers. They're not very principled, but they can also become very good administrators. They may seem cold. They don't, they're not happy or they never tend to look happy, but they are very, very fair in terms of they rule on the rules and they're very good at following the rules. But if a law is unjust or a rule is unfair, it doesn't matter. The outcome will be unfair because they only rule or judge on what is already there. They don't have a good judgment of what is fair and unfair, um, other than is it with the law or not with the law. Now, it is generally said that the reason why this happens is there's an imbalance of the wood and the water. And it's either too much water and the plant's drowned, and indeed, yes, you can kill a plant from overwatering it, or there's too much wood, it removes all the water, and then the wood dies. So there's just this imbalance. Now, others will represent this as a mother and a son having issues with the mother interfering with the son's life. Now, this is just another way to look at it, and if you read about it, you will definitely see this. This, however, the water, the elemental explanation makes a lot more sense to me because I do understand Bazi in terms of elements. Now, several websites suggest that if the water and wood are in balance, this uncivilized punishment is pretty weak. It doesn't make a big problem. And you can actually use the free Bazi calculator site for a pie chart that is not like Joey Apps. Joey Apps is a totally different type of chart. I mean, his analysis is very different. You want to look at a pie chart where it divides, when you add up everything, it goes to 100%. If you look at Joey Yap's thing, it goes to God knows what number. So you have to do something where it's divided in percentage, how much percent is fire, how much percent is earth, and so forth. Now, if the water is too high, using this idea, if the water is too high, you add wood. And that would be education, not necessarily formal education, but learning a skill and becoming very good at a skill. That has a lot of advantages because that allows you to do what you want to do. I mean, uh, to be a freelancer or to work by yourself because you don't need any help to get the job done. And if the wood is too high, you need to add water. So that's flexibility, being more open to different viewpoints. That's mostly what we're talking about here. Now, another website recommends using the I Ching to remedy the situation. They suggest you use one of two of the hexagrams. That's what using the I Ching means. And the first one that they recommend is stagnation. That's the name of the English name of the uh, hexagram, but it's standard numbers number 12. That's the easiest way to find it. This means that you need to become a moral, upright person. And it says, although great things are not done, small positive things can be done. I mean, that's a interpretation of what it says. It'll talk about a superior man. What they mean is someone who's morally upright and honest, and that's what they mean by superior. Now, this does actually coincide quite well to what we were talking about in terms of being a good judge. They'll judge on what the law is, and so they'll be very fair with the law. So that's more like small things, but they don't work to change an unjust law. That is the great things. And so uh, this, but this is a not a bad way to be. I mean, this is basically what is talked about already. This is you can become quite moral and uh, quite honest person if you have the right upbringing. If you don't have the right upbringing, oftentimes these people will end up in jail because they misinterpret people's interaction and they feel threatened when the other person means no threat and somebody ends up getting hurt. It's usually not them, it's because they're the one who does the attacking, but then they end up in real trouble. So, and the thing is it is not really in some way their fault. I mean, it is because they've done this, but uh, they have this really um, high tendency to be threatened. And so it's very easy for them to go overboard. And that's why it's so careful. This is why you have to, if you have a kid like this, you have to be really careful to get that out of them. Otherwise, it's usually not a good life for them. Now, the other one is number 11, which usually is given the name peace, maybe grace, but it's something nice. Now, it just basically means being in harmony with your situation. Now, this is hard for everybody. So this one is the harder one, but it could be done. And so this is two options. Uh, I think that this one is the easier one to do, but this one might be um, doable if you didn't have a good childhood. It may allow you to step back when you're in harmony with your situation. You just it's not that you just accept things, but uh, you say, okay, that's what it is. We deal with it, and we try to make the situation better in the future. That's basically what being in harmony with your situation is. Now, well, these are good ideas. They will be very hard for a person with uncivilized punishment to accomplish on their own. The things like meditation, yoga, tai chi, anything like this that makes you calmer can help with number 11. But if you haven't had a really great upbringing, number 12 is out of a lot of people's reach if they have the uncivilized punishment. Now, finding someone that can help them accomplish these things is actually very hard because they don't trust people's intentions. So this is a really hard thing to overcome. I think I actually feel quite sorry when a person has this kind of thing because it's very hard for them to trust. And it's I feel like they have a very hard life. Now, there's another site, and this is not a bad site. I've read this particular site, the Sohu site, several times. They're usually quite general, not very detailed, but this time they were. They actually say if there's a monkey or a pig in one of the other branches, doesn't have to be both, it just needs to be one, that is said to mitigate this conflict between the rat and the rabbit. So let's look at that. So monkey is metal. Metal supports water, so the water doesn't become too weak, and it also controls wood. So that's really good if you have a lot of wood and very little water. The pig is an additional source of water, so again, the water won't become too weak. It doesn't really do anything um, to the wood except for support it like water does. So again, if water is weak, this is good. However, neither of these things work when wood is too weak and water is too strong. It actually makes the situation worse. So I don't know why they think this is a good solution. Uh, because there's already too much water there, and here you're just basically adding water. So uh, since it can go either way, obviously this isn't the real solution, at least not the full solution. Now, given that distrust is at the heart of this punishment, receiving therapy to reduce this distrust can probably help you the most. Uh, However, finding someone that you trust enough to get that therapy from is hard because you don't trust people. It is really, really hard. However, if you pay someone to help you with this, then you can justify that, yes, the reason they're doing this to help me is because they get paid for it. That could work. But of course, you have to earn enough money to be able to afford these people, and they tend to be on the expensive side. So let's go to some examples. So this one is, of course, a natal uncivilized punishment. The rat and the rabbit are side by side, and this has to do with this is career, this is grandparents, the outside world. So obviously, this one is more of a problem for somebody's work, for their job, uh, for whatever they want to do in life. They have they have some trouble here. They have a lot of distrust of the people they work for. Now, if we look at the pie chart, and this comes from the Chinese Metasoft site, it'll be close, I think, if you look at the Bazi calculator site. But we can see here we have 27% of water and only 13% of wood. So water is definitely the big guy here. So this idea of a pig or a monkey in the chart doesn't help because it only makes the situation worse. So what this person needs to do is is to add wood, of course. And since this is a fairly imbalance, you've got over twice as much water as you have wood, then this is probably going to be a significant problem. Uh, this person doesn't trust people in authority. Now, this person is still quite young, but they would have trouble trusting their teachers and maybe thinking the teacher doesn't like them and they fear the principal. Um, of course, as they grow older and get into the workforce, it'll be the boss and the CEO or perhaps the government uh, in general. So they're just very distrustful. Now, so it depends if they can deal with this, and if they can deal with this when they're young, it will be much better for them. They're at a point where it's almost too late, just because of the age. They've already got a lot of ingrained fears and distrust. So a lot more work would have to be done. Now, education, again, should help this person. because they're low on the wood. And so wood is growth. And so learning new things, learning new skills, that is growth. So this that's what the parents of this kid should focus on, along with some therapy if they can get the kid to open up to a therapist. Now, freelancing is probably easier for this person than working for a company. Now, this is another example where we have it between the day and the hour. I mean, sorry, the day and the month. And this, of course, is also going to affect work, but also personal life because the day is here. So this is quite significant. They probably have some problem with their parents. Later in life, it'll be their boss. Again, they're probably better as freelancers. But here we have the opposite thing. We have a lot of wood and very little water. So we have 15% of the chart is water, 38% is wood. Now there is no metal here. Literally, there is no metal. If you look at the chart, there's no metal, and there's no metal in this chart. So there is, I mean, this is the way it works, of course. Now, this kid needs to be learn to be more flexible in their thinking, and that's the best thing we can do for this particular kid, to look at different viewpoints. And of course, if this during a pig year and maybe during a monkey year, it might be possible that it's better, they have more ability because that adds the right things into the chart. And that is a possibility to consider, that to focus during those times. But because there is no metal, focus might be a problem for the kid. Because metal is focus and energy, this kid could easily be quite lazy and not want to do things because they have no metal there. And they may not really have a lot of physical energy because they don't have any metal. So that is something also to be concerned about. Now, the location of the adjacent pairs can indicate where most of the distrust lies. If it involves the month, it's a problem with the boss or authority figures. Uh, if it's the year, it's more the authority figures and less the immediate boss. If it's the day, it's personal relationship problems, distrusting your significant other. And if it's with the month, then you distrust everybody. And that's kind of a bummer. If it's with the hour, you distrust people who you, like, for example, probably the biggest thing there would be discussing ideas that you have. You don't trust anybody. You think all they want to do is steal your ideas, which a lot of people try to do. But they there is that is more on a one-to-one basis, whereas when it's on the year or the month, this is more distant. Um, your boss doesn't have, I mean, you do have usually a one-to-one relationship with your boss, but sometimes you never meet your boss alone. I mean, it's always with like a big group of people. And then that's really much more distant. So it depends on where you work if it's going to be like this. But again, if you have this, if you can be a freelancer, it's better. It's just easier. Now, when time triggers uh, an uncivilized punishment, the location of the one branch will tell you where the issue lies. So if it's in the year, you have problems more with much higher authority, people that you don't normally interact with, and um, so that it's even more distance than the month. If it's a month, it's usually your immediate boss if you work for others. Now, if you work for yourself, this isn't a problem. If it's in the day, it's personal relationship challenges, usually distrust of your partner's faithfulness. You tend to be quite jealous uh, and quite suspicious that your partner is fooling around. If it's in the hour, It's distrust of others concerning, it could be investments. So, you probably won't be able to find a investment advisor because you'll always be suspicious. It could be your kids, although that's kind of rare. But ideas are probably the biggest one. You're suspicious to talk to others about ideas because you're really afraid they will steal them. And that is actually not a illegitimate worry because there are a lot of people looking for good ideas. And you might come up with one. You might not though, it just but you worry about it. So here is an example of a non-adjacent chart, a non-adjacent uncivilized punishment. So this is pretty weak. There's a little bit probably at most 50% of a full-blown uncivilized punishment. But uh, but the thing is that during either a rat year or a rabbit year, it creates the full-blown uncivilized punishment because whatever year, whatever animal it is, it comes in and it connects with each palace. And so when the rat year, it's going to connect with the year. So you're going to distrust like the government or your decisions of the CEO of the company you work for, that kind of thing. And then during the rabbit year, it's going to connect with the rat. And this is where you get suspicious about your partner. So here's an example. 2020, we had that was a rat year. It is This is where the interaction lies with the year. So you basically distrust higher authorities. Now this kid I mean, this is still a kid, so this may be some problems at school. Um, Maybe saying things like the principal hates them and has it in for them, that kind of thing. Now during a rabbit year, it interacts here. Now this child is only 12 years old, so, or maybe even less than that. Oh, at this point they're 12 years old. So this is most likely to be worrying about betrayal of a friend because they're too young to really have a significant other in the sense of, as an adult. But later it will be worry about an unfaithful lover or partner or whatever. So this person has 2 years that are quite difficult. Now, there are some batzas that have a punishment created by time, and it could be any one of the punishments, that also have another formation that can override a punishment. And that is very nice when that happens. This can work to mitigate the punishment or the harm or the destruction, and so that it really doesn't take effect uh, because it's still there. But if you have a combination that is a positive thing that is better um, in terms of power, that will be what you see most of the time. And then other times, very much fewer times, the negative part would come out. So here's an example. This is actually my batza. I have a rabbit in my day, and 2020, that was a rat year. Of course, 2008 was also a rat year. But this comes through the luck pillar or the annual pillar. My luck pillar, the rat luck pillar, doesn't happen until I'm 90 something. So I hope I have a partner that my husband's still alive at the time, but we'll see. Yeah, I might not be alive. But this would be indicate worry about an unfaithful partner. Now, this was COVID time. This last one was COVID time. And I didn't worry at all because he worked from home. We were together the whole time. I mean, basically. In fact, I was the one who went out and shopped. He stayed home. I was never worried about this. Now, there is another interaction that comes with a rat year or a luck pillar for my particular chart. And that is the rat, the ox, and the rabbit. Rat, ox, and rabbit make up a directional combination. And that is the strongest type of combination there can be. Now, that's a water combination. And I'm a strong day master, so water is not good for me. I mean, it's but it but it doesn't seem to have a big deal. Maybe it's the balance between these two, the uncivilized punishment and the water, extra water. Somehow, maybe that makes it just easier to deal with and not a real problem. Um, but the I already have a lot of water in my chart, so that just means I'm quite flexible, and I get even more flexible, maybe a little more scattered during a year like this. Although this year was very, uh, I actually did a lot this year, in 2020, because I had nothing else to do. So I learned a lot. And also, since I was taking a class during this time, I actually saw Zoom and how useful it was, and I said, I can start a business. So this is when I really started planning the business, because I wasn't going to do this because I didn't want to have to go all over the place and for feng shui, not for Bazi. But I didn't want to have to travel all over the world to do this, and I found that I could do this remotely, not just talking to people, but actually doing everything remotely. The I mean, I understood, what the satellite did, and I mean, this was a very fruitful year for me. So that extra flexibility actually seemed to help me. But if I look back at 2008, uh, I know I was taking classes. Actually, I think that's when I started my interior design studies, although I'm not really sure. Uh, that was actually quite a long time ago. So, but I've been learning the whole time anyway. Now, both are present, the directional combination and the uncivilized punishment is present. But since the directional combination is stronger, it's going to dominate most of the time. Not all of the time, but most of the time. Now, the mitigation of an uncivilized punishment is largely the realization, as the old saying goes, that you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. Now, I don't know how common this is, but I've heard it enough in my life. And that basically means being helpful and being polite gives you a lot more support than being difficult and distrustful. And so, if you want to succeed in life, you need support of others. I mean, there's almost nobody who can succeed without the support of others. So, I mean, even Einstein, even though he did his work more or less on his own, if he didn't have the ability to have that job in the patent office, and he was given that job out of the kindness of somebody, uh, then he probably would not have had the time to work on, his theories. So even though he was way ahead of everybody else, he still needed the help of other people. He needed the support of other people. So this is, the, I mean, even if this goes against your grain, this works. And once a person realizes that has an uncivilized punishment, they can they can force themselves to be more helpful and see that their life gets better, and that usually puts them on an upward track, which really helps them have a better life. Now, education can help when water is too high, and we're looking in comparison to wood. We're not looking at the Joey app, is it, high level, average, whatever. We're looking in the pie chart, where, yeah, what percentage of all of the elements is water, what percentage is wood, and you compare just those two. Now, becoming more adaptable can help when wood is too high, and again, in comparison to the water. So this means basically learn to become more accepting of other ideas. Now, adding a weak element, I think, is better for this type of a formation than trying to control the elements. The only one that is helpful when there's an imbalance is metal. Metal will um, help create water, and it will help chop wood. So that would be only okay if the wood is too high and the water is too weak. but there's no element that will do it the other way around. So, so it is, I mean, if you want to, the closest thing would be Earth, but then Earth controls water, but wood controls Earth, so the energy goes out anyway. So this is why it's better to add an activity, a certain type of activity that's associated with an element than trying to do anything else. It I mean, but again, this whole idea is to try to be more polite, more helpful. You get more support. That actually is a nice feedback loop that can make you a civilized, uncivilized punishment person. That is, you understand you have to be helpful and you have to be polite to make it in this world. So that's it. I'd like to thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful to you. It is a tough punishment to deal with, but it can be dealt with work. And if you know what's going on, it can really help you find a path out of your troubles. Thanks again for watching.